Welcome one and all to Dice Company and the Story So Far, Part 2. My name is Izzy, and I'm the official Dice Company archivist. So, where were we? Vander and Augustus were last seen fleeing the Fingers prison with former prisoner Bella Clearvale and the incredibly beautiful and talented Aurora Zeno in the far north of Elestia. While Benny and Tok were, actually I do, but I'm not saying. So, another question. How did we get here? Wherever here is. Well, with Papa Ungamus now vanished, our heroes... Nope, still sounds weird. First had to escape Verokir, the dwarven city of the dead, deep below the ground and infested with zombies. Luckily, they discovered while escaping from said zombies that when Benny gets stressed out, occasionally fireballs burst from his chest, effective against zombies.
Hang on, did you say luckily?
A weird side effect of Benny's Rojan powers. Probably nothing to worry about. The gang took shelter in an ancient bank vault where they discovered some unlikely allies. A company of orcish warriors. And Augustus discovered an elven sword that caught flame, which was almost probably nothing to worry about. With new weapons and new friends, they travelled to the mysterious palace of Lothar Janeth, in the belief that defeating him would break the curse that prevented them from leaving Verokir. Splitting from the orcs on arrival, the group made their way cautiously through the palace, pausing only to accidentally release, battle and recapture their old adversary and shadow vanguard Tiara, and to repeatedly try and fail to impersonate zombies.
Mumbling brains may have been an error, but I maintain it was a fundamentally sound plan.
Quite. One useful thing they did was find and release Shaq, a captured orc who joined the party in the assault on Janeth's laboratory. An epic battle ensued during which Tick was disintegrated before Lothar and a briefly free, yet again Tiara, were defeated and the party were able to breathe fresh air for the first time in weeks. They also earned a wish from Papa Ungamus to be used in an emergency, but what were the chances of having one of those anytime soon? On reaching the surface, they headed straight for their rendezvous point with the villagers of Haven, detouring only to name themselves the Order of the Heron, and to learn that Augustus was in fact...
Fabian Augustus Zeno Donoslian, first son of Donoslia, and frankly, rather a big deal.
Quite! Also, Tok implanted Tick's memory crystal in another automaton, and that's just Tick now. 100% Tick. It's entirely straightforward and finished, and Tok needn't think about it too hard. They arrived at Haven and found it was now sanctuary, hidden from the world by Seraphina's magic. The village was true to its name, and the group were welcomed with a feast and had the opportunity to rest up. They learned how the world had changed while they were underground, with Leith and the Tam Race Foundation in control of Slatehome, and the Empire's war machine ramping up despite the efforts of the dread pirate Plex and Bardal Schultz, the people's champion. After some time healing up and gaining a measure of control over his Rojan powers, in Benny's case.
And coming to terms with me Rojan powers that had aged me 10 years and no one had bloody mentioned it.
As I said, resting up. Or exploring Roanoke and meeting mysterious amnesiac strangers if you're Augustus. Or massacring bandits if you're Vander.
That was a form of rest. I found it highly invigorating.
The group agreed that the first priority must be to rescue Kaylin Lux, Haven's former leader, who was being held captive in the Fingers, the notorious prison in the frozen north of the continent. Through Benny's underworld contacts, they heard word that useful blueprints or maps might be found in the city of Deepmond. Back on the Sterling, for the first time in weeks, the Heron group travelled to said city to find it in flux. The Scarlet Knights, guardian of the city for generations, were being moved aside by the Blackhearts as the Empire sought to tighten its grip on even this far-flung corner of its lands. Uncovering a plot to remove the Scarlet Knights from the board entirely, the gang instead joined forces with the Knights. Augustus even pledged himself to the Order and routed the Blackhearts.
They call me the Heron Knight now, you know. Hero of Deepmond.
Anyway, in an unprecedented success, they did not have to flee from a pleasant location due to their actions, and even found the blueprints they were looking for. As an extra bonus, Augustus got rid of his cursed sword. Of course it was cursed. And Tok performed some rudimentary automaton brain surgery, and in doing so recruited said automaton to his spy network. Absolute sweetheart. Love that for him. Next, it was a trip to the village of Whiterun to see if they could squeeze some information from Christoph Mellencamp, a guard at the Fingers, who was said to be persuadable regarding sharing information he perhaps ought not to.
By carrot or by stick?
And it turned out a bit of both was required. But in the end, following some professional wrestling-style shenanigans, Mellencamp gave up details of who they might encounter in the Fingers and various hurdles they might expect to overcome. More Fingers held a prisoner, closely matching the description of Augustus's sister Aurora. This news was syndicated shortly after they left Whiterun, when Augustus received a telepathic message from Corith, the mysterious amnesiac stranger, telling him that said sister, Aurora, was in Roanoke. This gave Augustus pause, as you might imagine, but in the end they decided to press on north. Which they did, until in the clouds over Roanoke, a menacing shadow revealed itself to be a black dragon. With Vander and Augustus downed by its acid breath attack, Benny, fearful for all their lives, used Papa Ungamus's wish to freeze and capture the dragon. It became trapped in a stone small enough for Benny to wear around his neck, like a pendant.
Archivist, please record that during this encounter, Tok and Tick successfully wrestled the dragon to the ground. The humans tell me this action was unthinkable.
Delayed by the dragon attack and the subsequent damage to the ship, our protagonist arrived at the Fingers the night before Kaylin was due to stand trial. A trial for which there would be no prizes for guessing the outcome. They were horrified to discover the Emperor's own airship, the Ravager, idling in the sky above the prison. With time of the essence, new plans were made on the fly, and Benny found himself creeping aboard the Ravager and planting explosives in the engines. Hoping this would prevent an effective pursuit when the time came, he set a fuse with an hour's length and joined the others on the ground outside the prison, not before magically changing his appearance to that of Mellencamp. In fact, it was a curious group in general that approached the entrance. The apparent Mellencamp alongside a bounder captain, Augustus, an Empire Inquisitor, Vander. Tok, as had become his habit when his presence might lead to questions, was hiding in the bag of holding. These disguises, Augustus's bluster, and the general sense of panic engendered by the Emperor's visit meant that entry was straightforward. Indeed, the group found themselves in Lady Omicron, the resident Shadow Vanguard's, secret vault. While in there, they heard Omicron and two visiting vanguards discuss a plan to fake Kaylin's execution and set him up as a villain in residence in another location. Clearly, they had somehow altered Kaylin's mind, announcing they acted in the name of the Hushed One. Also in the vault, the group collected, but, and this is crucial, did not destroy a glowing gemstone. Making their way to the high security cells, Tok managed to dismantle the guard's automaton, allowing Vander on Augustus to start releasing prisoners. Locks weren't in place since the area was primarily protected by a pulsing blue anti-magic field, stemming from a gemstone matching the one from Omicron's vault, and now in Vander's hand. Turned out it really was Aurora in the cell, along with an unconscious Kaylin, Automaton 1, a mysterious young woman named Bella, and others. At this point, Benny stepped into the high-security area, and as he came into contact with the anti-magic field, the dragon exploded from the pendant around his neck and launched into a ferocious attack. Escaping the high-security area by the skin of their teeth, Tok used his command of Draconic to convince the dragon that his true enemies were the guards.
Archivist, please record that during this encounter, Tok and Tick once again wrestled the dragon to the ground.
Quite. However, the danger was not past as the group ran into the menacing figure of Paragon Ohm, patrolling the floor of the prison. Trying and failing, to escape via the mess hall, the group had no choice but to stand and fight against this mysterious and intensely powerful figure. In a panic, Vander glugged an unlabeled potion, only to find it was polymorph potion, and he was now a shark. A desperate battle ensued, with interventions from the dragon once more, as well as the 3 shadow vanguards. With things looking bleak, and Tok unconscious, 3 mysterious portals appeared in the air, and Tok, Automaton 1, and Benny were pulled through them and transported to... where? Incredibly, Augustus, Vander, Bella and Aurora somehow rallied to defeat their enemies and drag themselves and the rescued prisoners outside, where the automaton crew of the Sterling scooped them up. They watched the engines of the Ravager go up in flames as they hastened away from the Fingers, the fate of their friends still unknown. And that, my friends, is the story so far. Part 2. Please join us for when we return for Chapter 45, Those We Left Behind. I've been Izzy, and I'll see you next time.